What's going on, everyone? LT100 here, and as you can see, I'm doing absolutely nothing because I'm watching some TV as a break, and I thought that'd be a good idea before I get started on working on my next video. And as you can see, I am watching an old promo from my childhood. A lot of you may know it too. It's about the Thomas VHSs and DVDs. Man, there was just something about them. They were just a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I don't have all of them, sadly, but that's not stopping me from wanting to watch them over and over again. In fact, I've been watching them a lot as a kid that I might as well do a review on them. You know what? That's not a bad idea. I mean, I've already proven myself that I'm already a movie person, so hey, maybe I'll just go ahead and do a, review on one of the Thomas DVDs. But which one should I do? I better take a look. Alright, let's take a look here. Maybe, definitely not yet. Jeez. Let's see, wait a minute. Oh, this is definitely going to be the one to do a review on. Oh, now we're talking. Alright, let's begin. So you probably know the history of the DVD by now, but just in case, I'll do a quick on it. It first came out on VHS back in 2000, then it finally got released on DVD in 2002. Then it would be re-released in 2004 on both VHS and DVD as part of the Totally Thomas collection. Then the DVD would re-release again in both 2008 in the same pack, and again in 2009 by Lionsgate. And it wouldn't be until 2015 when it got re-released for the final time by Universal as part of a double feature pack. So that shows how much attention this simple compilation tape or disc had by fans over the past 2 decades, and it makes sense why. On my part, this was one of the first things that introduced me to spooky stuff and as a beginning to why Halloween would become my favorite holiday. With all that said, I think this is the perfect start of this new review series of mine. Let's stop chattering because time is candy and talk about the first episode of this DVD. Sir Topham, Hatt and his grandchildren are on holiday and were on a seaside when Stephen and Bridget showed him a map that leads to a castle that their sand castle is based on. They asked Toby to take them to both the castle and the mine and went on an adventure of finding the 2 locations. When they found the abandoned mine, Toby wasn't comfortable in what he was seeing and was sure it was haunted. But one night when he and his crew were on night duty, he heard a wheezing noise and thought it was a ghost called the Old Warrior. But then realized it was just an engine named Bertram, and the castle and mine were finished for everyone to explore. So I know there's a lot of people out there who really doesn't like this episode for one thing. But I'll get to that in a minute because I do want to say that this episode isn't exactly full-on exciting compared to some of the other episodes on this disc, but I still don't think it's a bad episode. Sir Topham have found 2 new locations to make them new again. Whoopee! It does have some questionable moments in it, like how did Thomas know Bertram before anyone else did? Or how did the children get that map in the first place? Or how did the single man know where the places were and yet Sir Topham Hatt didn't? But maybe that's something we can just come up on our own theories on, instead of complaining about the episode. Like, maybe the children's dad, who we never seen on the show one time, gave them the map, and the single man is related to someone who used to work on the railway before and showed him the railways before that person retired. So, really, I don't think it's a massive deal to complain about as if we're crying over spilled milk. But the one thing everyone seems to have a big issue on is Toby being scared over the abandoned mine. While I do agree that he had one of the worst changes on the show from seasons 8 to 24, I don't think that change of him being a fraidy cat didn't start here. He has the right to be scared in this episode. I mean, look at the place. It shows the remains of the Indians who used to work at the railway and were just left to rot and died. And he definitely had the right to be scared when he was guarding the place for the night. I mean, it's an abandoned place with random fog floating around the ground. So answer me this. What exactly is your point about Toby's downgrade in this episode? I think we would like that if that was us. So really, I have to disagree with where you're going with. I guess I better explain the elephant in the room, and that would be Bertram himself. I understand that he's one of the first engines to appear in one episode and never came back. Season 5 is pretty much the start of this bad habit of the new engines appearing for one episode only and never coming back all the way up till season 12, mainly for the merchandise. You could say that was the direction Britt wanted for him since he was originally going to be a tank engine, but he ended up just being Duke repainted with Smudger's face due to not having the budget. But I don't think that was the point of his 22nd appearance. He does look a little creepy to scare Toby, and the only background we've ever gotten was Bertram was a brave engine. Maybe that was the message, to be as brave as Bertram, and it is okay to be afraid at times. So yeah, I don't think it's an exciting episode to watch, but it's definitely not a bad one, like a lot of fans say it is. I'll give this episode an 8 out of 10. A new quarry is being built on the island, but a random boulder is standing on top of the mountains during the construction. Rusty is the only one who's concerned about the boulder, thinking that it's going to be trouble, but after a new machine named Thumper came to help make the job easier and quicker, the boulder started to move, escape from the mountains, and try to crush everyone who's standing in its way. It's not until it reaches the yards and crashes right into the sheds where it finally stops. Sir Topham had decided to move the boulder to another place and shut down this part of the island and never come back to bother it again. If you want to talk about an episode that's unrealistic done right, this is the best example for it. I understand that some fans may not enjoy it because of its problems, but I don't really care, to be honest with you. While yes, it copied and pasted the famous scene of Indiana Jones, where he was being chased by a giant boulder, I still think Britt and David tried to keep it as original as they could. Are there problems with it? Sure, but I want to go with the positives first before I share my issues with the episode. First of all, this episode is very mysterious. I think the point of the boulder randomly coming to life and trying to destroy everything is up for you to decide for how it's possible, and I like it. I would share my theory of it, but I think other Thomas YouTubers have already made really good ones that I can't even come up with one of my own. The two that comes up in mind right away is The Return of Boulder by Railfan Number 1, where it shows a famous rock climber named Melvin Milestone climbing up the mountain and wanted to climb on top of the boulder, but then slips and falls down to his death, which is why the boulder is in control and has a face. The other theory I could think of that makes sense is the final part of The Horrors of Halloween Lake Saga, where it proves an engine from the past who had a nasty accident and died from it has been hunting several events from the 5th season. One of them being the Boulder, and the way it's done is freaky as hell. Stuff like this can work as long as it's done right. If you have a theory that you would like to share, then let me know in the comments. Second, I love how intense the chase can be. You would think that it may be just the strong wind that's making the boulder go towards Rusty, but then when it just mysteriously appears behind him, that's when the chaos begins. Not only does it try to destroy Rusty, but it tries to run over Scarloy and Renez, and I could tell that they were scared out of their heads when it happened and probably had to go to train therapy afterwards. Third, I just love the fact that Boulder's face is basically carved after Gordon's face. Just compare them back to back and you won't be able to look at it in this episode the same way again. And lastly, the ending is perfect. After the crazy crash at the sheds, Sir Topham just looks at the boulder and you could tell there's something he's seeing from it that the audience can't. And there's that one final line that feels very deep.
Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain and that its sighs are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right. Don't you?
Okay, now let's get the issues I have with it out of the way. The first one is on Thumper. Unlike Bertram, I just don't see the point of his appearance in this episode. He kind of looks like he's staring into your soul and wanting to take it real bad. In fact, why did the workmen need him anyway? It's to help with collecting the rock much faster, sure. But don't they already have enough machines around that can help them? Which leads me to another problem I have, and that's the workmen themselves. How the hell were they not aware of this random boulder that's right above their heads and sitting on the edge, looking like it's about to fall down? I would think that at least a few of them would be in charge of their safety and surroundings, but I guess these guys are as dumb as the single men, huh? And my last issue is on Rusty's large-scale model. Now, it's not the body of the model that I don't mind. It looks accurate enough, but it's just a face I can't stand. It looks like it all of a sudden has grown 3 inches wider and is ready to go further down to the buffers. Just look at the face on the small scale model and you can easily see the difference and can tell why that one looks better than the other. But other than those issues I mentioned, I still really like this episode, and I can easily watch this over and over again and just have fun with it no matter what. I already know that from remaking the episode all those years ago, and it definitely paid off in the end. So I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10. On the narrow gauge railway, the engines have to clean up leaves and broken branches off of their railway so they can pass through them. But one day, Peter Sam's truck broke away and ran right into the bridge where they fell off and landed right into the swamp below. Sir Topham had assigned Duncan to do his work instead, and Rusty told Duncan an old ghost tale about an engine that fell off that bridge, and its ghost will always try to cross it but never succeeds. Duncan didn't believe Rusty's tale, and his crew agreed to play a trick on him. The next night, Duncan could see the lights that were the shape of an engine and heard a loud splashing noise. That made him back away and ran away from it. So while the episode doesn't sound that amusing as it's just another one of those don't believe in ghost stories, I think the way it's done makes it even better. I mean, just look at the atmosphere they used in the night scenes. I think it's mostly the fog and the full moon in the background makes it creepier than it already is. If that's not enough, then let's talk about the story about the ghost train. Without a doubt, it's a dark one for sure. I mean, we literally saw him falling to his death and drown for Pete's sake. I wonder if the Scarloey model they used got ruined after all they put him through. It's no wonder why he started using his larger scale model for the rest of the series. Another thing I think makes the episode work is for the music, which is something I now realize I want to talk about in the previous episodes. For Toby's discovery, when Toby's theme is slowed down, is pretty terrifying. For Rusty and the Boulder with Boulder's theme is pretty chilling. And for this episode, where the music just plays on the night scenes, are horrifying. I could tell Mike and Jr. had the permission to go full-on thriller style with the 5th season. And this is one of the episodes that really shows. I'm still expecting Mike himself to recreate this theme for a future entrance theme CD of his website. You know how annoying parents can be and think kids shouldn't be scared at all by watching stuff like this? Well, I hate to break it to you over protecting parents, but I think kids need to be scared and it will show them how to be brave. I know I did, and this is one of those things I think kids should just watch, and maybe it'll be one of the first things a kid should learn from being scared to bravery. I know I would if I had a niece or nephew, and he or she would want me to put something fun on like a fun uncle would do. And here's something I just remember while I'm writing this script. Is Rusty's ghost story true or made up? It's never explained in the episode, so that leaves us figuring out ourselves. For me, I like to say the story is true. My theory is that news broke out after the bodies were found, on either the newspapers or on the radio. But as time passed by, it just became a ghost story that you can just tell to someone but not believe in it, just like Rusty did. I don't think he believed in it and heard it from someone. So yeah, that says a lot for this short episode, and I'll go ahead and give it a 10 out of 10 for how spooky it is. Let's see if one of the other episodes on this DVD can reach that level. During Stepney's visit, Sir Topham had assigned him to help work at the quarry, but while he and his crew were there, they were asked about taking the special train that night, and his driver said yes without Topham's permission. After they dropped off the train, fog started to spread and Stepney couldn't see and ended up getting lost and took the wrong turn to the scrapyards. After the fog lifted, 2 diesels named Airy and Bird took him to the smelter shed for him to get scrapped. But at the last second, Sir Topham had stopped everything while he was visiting the yards. Right off the bat, we have a pretty darn good episode here. This is actually the one anyone would talk about for how dark it is. Watch Mojo did it, then Tom Strider did it, you name it. At first I thought they were making a big deal about it, like any non-Thomas fan would, but after watching it again recently, I immediately realized how much darker this episode is than I remember as a kid. I guess the first thing I should talk about is the lighting of the episode, because it shows what the visuals are telling us. In the first half, when the sun is up, it's all bright, sunny, and full of happiness. But then, when we get to the second half where it gets dark, it tells us how scary and dangerous things are about to be. And then you get to the scrapyards, and that's when things get real. Woo! By how red it is, as if this was the last color Stepney was going to see, and how it might resemble the color of blood. Speaking of the halves, let's mention the music, because there's about it I didn't realize in this episode till now. In the first half, we get Stepney's theme, as in showing us how happy and cheery things are. But then everything went all silent once we get into Nightmare, till he dropped off the train when the music all of a sudden gets picked up again, but in a really dark tone. That's actually pretty clever, by just letting us settle in the silence before we get into the intense stuff. I mean, wow guys, wow. The last thing I can think of mentioning is the way Alec Baldwin does the voices. Stepney has this accent that seems to fit in well, and the way Baldwin makes him sound so scared and frightened at the scrapyards is pretty heartbreaking, and makes me feel so bad for the poor engine. He went through a lot at the scrapyard, so give him a break, guys. The other character I think Alec did really well was Ari. Good grief, does he really have to sound terrifying here? He sounds like a dangerous gangster who has a team of his own. It just gives me the creeps, jeez. Michael Angelis sounded good too, don't get me wrong, but compared to the way Baldwin did it in an episode where things get intense and creepy, I have to go with him over Angelis. Sorry. I was originally going to give this episode a 9 out of 10, but screw it, I'm just going to give it a 10 out of 10 for this episode. Henry had to take a train to Holland Lake Station one night, but when he got there, random things started to happen. A fogman's coat was hanging on a tree branch, the signal was red, but mostly the lights in the station were on and randomly shut off, and that was enough to scare Henry and his crew and left. The next night, they tried again, but it definitely got worse than the last try. The truck saw the gates mysteriously shut and the signal turned red, and that spooked them enough to the point they made Henry go faster. But then the trucks went through a landslide and plunged down into the ravine. Just then the ghost appeared to be a fogman named Old Bailey and told them he was the one who tried to warn them. But to make things up, the station got a massive fixer-upper and would become a useful station to use. Out of all the episodes that's on this disc, this is the one I would call the best one of them all. I feel like this is the ultimate spooky one that I can just watch at Halloween time over and over again and never get tired of it. I mean, look at it and don't say these sets don't look like anything out of a horror movie, because come on. Of course something with dead trees and heavy fog would be something out of a horror movie like Silent Hill. I remember I would watch this episode numerous times as a kid and would never get tired of it. I think this was one of the biggest reasons why I started getting into horror movies. While I do agree that Henry's change in the CGI series was the worst one out of all the character changes, where he's a massive green chicken, even more worse than Toby's change was, Henry here has all the rights to be terrifying, and I would be too if I see some mysterious things going on at the station. Speaking of the station, can I question what's even happening there? Like, is it really a ghost, or is it Old Bailey? If it's a ghost, then who can it be, and why was it trying to scare Henry away? I guess that's up to us on that theory, huh? And after its grand reopening, does that mean engines and visitors get a chance to see it all the time? Or did it end up not going so well and have to be shut down again? If it's the latter, then that would explain why we didn't see both the station and Old Bailey after this episode came out. Wait a minute. Can Old Bailey be a ghost this entire time? Huh. Oh well. I guess we'll never know. And I know I've already mentioned the music in the other episodes enough already, but I need to talk about the one in this episode real quick. As if Mike and Junior didn't go full-on horror style enough here, they decided to add cowbells in it. Now that is a whole new level of creepiness right here. It is hard to hear, like you either need to listen closely while you watch the episode, or just listen to the instrumental version to make it easier. But don't worry, it's still there. But anyway, this is the best episode in this disc, and highly one of my top favorite episodes in the show. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 for this one. Don't worry, this is the last time that an episode would be high of a rank in this episode. Sir Topham Hatt and his family is on holiday when some trouble kept happening to them. First, a plane called Tiger Moth nearly ran them over with its blades, and then when they tried to have a good time on their canal, it ended up getting stuck in a mud bank, and Percy had to help them get it off and took them to the station while riding on the rails. Okay, so we went from 5 of the creepiest, spookiest, and horrifying episodes this show has ever had to this decent, relaxing episode about the Topham family. I'm sorry, but that is the weirdest decision you could possibly make. I don't see anything about this episode that fits in this DVD. What, the family nearly had their heads chopped off by a careless pilot? That's your excuse? No, just no. If I was in charge, I would have swapped it with another episode from another Season 5 DVD, and I know just the one. You may disagree with me, but I think James and the Trouble with Trees would have been a better choice for this DVD, and the holiday episode can be in the Make Someone Happy DVD. It just feels like the right level of creepy to be on here, but I'll talk about that episode when I get to it. So, about this episode itself, it's charming, but not enough for me to enjoy it too much. It's just a relaxing episode about a holiday, and that's it. I always thought Lady Hatt was rude to Annie and Clarabelle for how old and uncomfortable they are. Tiger Moth's pilot is pretty dumb, and I just don't find this one very entertaining to watch. But that doesn't mean it's a bad episode. There's some good things about it. I could tell Alec Baldwin had a lot of fun doing the voices, especially Sir Topham Hatt and Lady Hatt the most here. I actually think that Lady Hatt's comment about Annie and Clarabelle after they got upgrading and not realizing it's them was funny. The scene where Sir Topham Hatt gets fried while on the ground was well done, and the visuals are really good. But other than that, it's just an okay episode from this disc. Thankfully, there's another episode on the Hatt family from the same season. I think it's done much better than this one. But that's a whole other story to talk about on another day. So yeah, just for the sake of it, I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10. Again, it's not horrible, it's just okay. And that is what I call a wrap. I mean, I gotta say, this was a lot of fun to do, and I might as well do more in the future. I mean, while, yeah, I've already done some reviews on other stuff, like Coraline and Illumination, I might as well do future reviews on DVDs, whether it's Thomas and, hey, who knows, maybe I'll do other DVD compilation review things. But that's just a work in process. And for now, maybe I'll just stick with the Thomas ones, obviously. Well, yeah, remember, this is just the beginning. Who knows when I'll start doing the next one, and maybe, maybe I'll get started working on the next one real soon. But until then, this will be the only one, and I better start working on the next video right away. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. I'm LT100, and keep on collecting DVDs, and never give up on them. Peace.